people mention a film version of Babes in Toyland, usually the Disney one is the first one that comes to mind. And that either means that's really good, or all the other film versions range from bad to really bad. And yeah, that's kind of my outlook on it. I loved this film growing up, but watching it again, it doesn't hold up that great. It's got a lot of good people, and the money in the production definitely shows, but in terms of the story and the main character, it's kind of all over the place and pretty bland. Surprising for a film that looks like this. Okay, well, what's the story? Mary and Tom are just two of the most adorable lovebirds and they're gonna get married. But Barnaby, the evil villain of the town, decides that he wants to marry Mary. How do I know this? Because he literally tells the audience.
If I'm to get my hands on Mary's money, the person Mary marries must be me, not Tom, me.
So he sends his two henchmen to have Tom killed. But the henchmen decide they can make a little money on the side too, so they decide to sell him to a bunch of gypsies. Now that Tom is gone, Mary sees that her only choice is to marry Barnaby. Why? Get this. She can't do the math on her finances. No, I'm not even kidding. There's a whole trippy ass song dedicated to it.
Add, subtract, and multiply till you're overcome. This is much too hard for us. We can't do the sum.
Barnaby of course accepts the offer to marry her and calls in a bunch of gypsies for entertainment. And, wouldn't you know it, Tom's in the gypsy band and of course they get back together. But then we shift to kind of another story as a bunch of the kids wander into the forest of no return and Tom and Mary go to try and save them. Only to run into a toy maker who makes a device that can shrink things down, but then Barnaby seems to follow him and he shrinks everybody down and uses that as leverage to still marry Mary, but then Tom breaks open a bunch of the toys and they have this big epic battle and this is weird. So yeah, as you can tell from the story, it's kind of all over the place and, like I said, weird. I'm usually fine with weird, but this movie clearly doesn't have much of a focus, and it's kind of obvious because there's nothing really that much interesting to focus on, at least in terms of the main characters. That's Annette Funicello as Mary, and she's usually very charming, but she just has nothing to work with here. All she does is cry and look confused. The guy who plays Tom has a funny scene as a gypsy fortune teller, but aside from that, he has nothing really that interesting. The kids are all boring. Some of the side characters are kinda neat, but they're not in it for very long. A lot of the songs are pretty pointless, though some of them are kinda fun. The only thing that's genuinely enjoyable about it is the villain. Recognize him? Yeah, that's the Scarecrow from Wizard of Oz. And he just has a great time being the most stereotypical villain, but really playing it up and having fun. This is the guy with the top hat, twiddles his mustache, tied the woman to the railroad tracks, the whole spiel. And his two bumbling sidekicks actually get a few laughs too. I also like Ed Wynn as the toy maker because, well, he's Ed Wynn. Anything he's in is just gonna be a ton of fun, even if it sucks. Aside from that, like I said, the look of the production is really impressive. I mean, yeah, it's obviously a set, but it's such a big set. And it's so creative with all the colors and the costumes and the puppets, and it looks really imaginative. Even if it is sort of dressed in that 60s and 70s style that dates it a bit, but not too bad. The music and songs as well, though not always necessary, are still nice to listen to. I could listen to that March of the Toy Soldiers forever. And yeah, we've heard it in a bunch of our different versions, but man does it sound good here. After the whole climax is a lot of fun. You spend this good long while building up this toy army with that incredible music and this wonderful stop motion, these great effects, and what does Barnaby do when they finally come in? He just laughs at them. It's sort of like, yeah, they're just toys, why am I afraid of you? But as they keep fighting on and on and on, they tend to get more and more threatening. Until Mary throws that potion at him that shrinks him down, and it's an enjoyable one-on-one battle between our hero and villain. Even though Mary clearly could just go and step on him, but yeah, it's more dramatic this way. So again, like almost any Disney production, even if it's bad, there's some really cool stuff in it. I do like the scope and size of the production, I do like the villains, and I like a lot of the music. But outside of that, the story and main characters are just so hopelessly dull. But again, as a kid, I did watch it a lot, but yeah, maybe it was for those three elements I listed earlier. I did tend to fast forward it whenever Tom or Mary were on screen. I don't know, if you're looking for an impressive looking kids film without much substance to it, you'll get your fill. But if you're looking for a timeless classic based on a timeless classic, Babes in Toyland, this is probably not the best interpretation. Or maybe it is in film form, but come on, there's gotta be better. Looks great, sounds great, but not too much else to it. Sword in the Stone. This is one of those movies I both really love and really hate at the same time. Well, maybe hate's too strong a word, but there's definitely an annoyance to it. Okay, let's talk about the good stuff. These are very memorable characters. Arthur is a naive, innocent boy, and Merlin is sort of this weird, eccentric wizard who's trying to teach him knowledge and wisdom. It's sort of nice having a film about Arthur that doesn't dive right into the sword battles and such, but instead into the philosophies of, well, being a good king. I like how we dive into the education, I like how we dive into him learning everything. But I guess here's my problem with it. That's exactly what it is. It's education and learning things. And it sort of goes at that pace. It's kind of like being in school, except you have an owl and Merlin teaching you stuff as opposed to your boring teachers. But with that said, that is kind of cool. But is that really what kids want to see when they go to watch a Disney film? For me as a kid, I did find myself watching it a lot. Maybe because there was such a laid-back tone to it. I mean, yeah, Arthur becomes a bird, he becomes a fish, he becomes a squirrel, and that's always great for kids. But nothing truly exciting happens until the last third when we get our villain, Mad Madam Mim. And even then, she's more of a side character than the main villain. Though she is a lot of fun. And that wizard's duel, that whole scene was awesome. I used to watch that over and over when I was younger. It's creative, and it's just got some great slapstick.
What's going on here?
You big blimp!
When I got older and I saw that the film was in the video store, I said, you know what? I do remember that movie leaving a big impact on me. Maybe I should watch it again. But when I saw it again, I actually found it a little more boring than I remember. The animation's not really spectacular, and neither's really the backgrounds. And I found I wasn't really learning that much. It's got its good scenes, but I don't know if it really gels as well as it wants it to. I think I admire more what it was trying to do than the final product. But with that said, I do like the relationship between Arthur and Merlin, and the side characters are a lot of fun too. Though, has anyone else noticed that the boy clearly went through puberty when he was doing this voice?
But I've got to get back to the castle. They'll want me in the kitchen.
He was a monster. The biggest fish I ever saw.
There's literally a scene where they play 2 clips of his voice back to back, and they don't gel up. Listen.
Oh, Sir Actor.
Whoa, what? Whoa!
It sounds like 2 different kids. But oh well. The film is a bit of a mixed bag, but I am glad I saw it when I was younger. And I guess I'm glad I saw it when I was older too. There's a lot of creativity, and like I said, I think it was kind of neat that they took this very laid-back tone. But sometimes I think it works to its disadvantage. I do like it, but I think a lot of that is more because of the nostalgia and the idea of it. It's hard to say whether or not the whole thing is worth recommending, but I will say if you do go see it, you'll definitely get 1 or 2 really creative and enjoyable moments. Minimum. Okay, so here's a fun fact you probably didn't know. My dad was in the Navy and got stationed in a lot of various places. So, that actually ended up with me being born in Italy. Yeah, I was actually born in Italy. The reason I bring this up is because being in Italy, we didn't have that many movies that were in English. So that meant the few movies we had, we just kept watching over and over and over. And the movie by far we watched the most was Mary Poppins. So I know this film pretty well. The songs, the characters, the story, I know it practically inside out. So I guess you can make the argument that I'm already sort of prejudiced towards this movie, as obviously I'm gonna love it, but I don't know. I stopped watching this movie for a bit, grew up, looked at it years later, and it's still a damn impressive movie. Not just for the songs, not just for the acting, not just for the effects, not just for the sets, not just for the atmosphere, but for the characters, for the story, for that, there's no other word I can use for it except magic. It's a friggin' magical movie. The best way I can describe it is like being cheerfully drunk at a party. You go, you have fun, you dance, you have all sorts of great times, but then you want to get into the serious moment where you want to question life, and yeah, that's kind of here too. It doesn't shy away from some of the really heavy stuff that it's doing, or well, I guess it's simple stuff. I mean, one could almost say it's too simple. It's a father who's a workaholic and needs to spend more time with his kids. That's not so hard. But the way they deal with it and the creative way they talk about it and, oh, it's just so damn good. Okay, well, let's start from the beginning, as if you guys don't know this story. Mr. Banks has two children, Jane and Michael, who are not very good at doing what they're told because the father is always at work and the mother is always out fighting for women's rights. So they request a nanny to sing them songs, give them treats, do all that good stuff. But Mr. Banks hates the idea and wants someone that's stern and strong. So he rips up the letter, but little does he know, it gets whisked up to the clouds where Mary Poppins is waiting. So what, she is gonna be all the fun and games and treat giving and all that stuff we heard about? Well, yeah, but the clever thing about it is that she actually is very strict and stern as well. There's all sorts of weird magical things that go on with her, but at the same time she's very mysterious. She doesn't always smile that much. Even when the magical stuff happens, she'll just deny that it ever happens. It's always kind of keeping you guessing. Even the kids don't always know what to think of it.
He won the horse race.
A respectable person like me in a horse race? How dare you suggest such a thing?
But I saw you do it.
As Julie Andrews, of course, as Mary Poppins, and man does she hit it out of the park. Yeah, she can obviously do the really charming, pretty moments where she has the nice voice. That is a nice voice, but again, what sets it apart is when she is strict, and she is just so hard to figure out. I love the way she constantly plays people against themselves. And they're never aware that it's going on. They always think that they came to the conclusion themselves when everything is actually going exactly to how she planned.
At my side, where are we going?
The bank, of course, exactly as you proposed.
I propose.
Of course.
Did I say that I was going to take the children to the bank?
It certainly sounded that way, dear.
No. And why not?
And of course you have Dick Van Dyke as Bert, and yeah, everyone makes fun of the accent, and it's not unwarranted. It's a really bad Cockney accent.
Now, this imposing edifice, for first greets the eye, is the home of Admiral Boom.
But I really hope that doesn't divert people too much away from really still what a good performance it is. I mean, yeah, the accent is distracting. If you can't see past it, I can understand that. But at the same time, look how much energy he's putting into it. Look at all the dancing. Look at all the physical stuff he's doing. Just look at what a great character this is. I love the fact that every time you see him, he always has a different job. I mean, this is probably a guy who lives on the street, but he doesn't care. He's just so happy with life. He's happy with everything. He's just happy to have air in his lungs. Mr. Banks, he's a perfect bullseye as well. He is a stick in the mud and doesn't ever get the joke, but you see that he's really trying hard, and you see that when he does actually want to bring his kids closer, he is legitimately excited about it. It just has to be about something that he's excited about, and that's of course his work. The memorable moments in this movie are too many to count. Ed Wynn laughing on the ceiling, the Chim Chimney song, the dance sequences with that, walking on top of the rooftops, blowing the smoke into stairs, that wonderful sunset. Oh God, it's overload. There's so many good moments of atmosphere, music, and wonder, and just, oh, it takes you back to being a little kid again. And all the effort is there, all the effort that they put into the look of it, and the size of it, and the dance numbers, and the music, and the lyrics, and... Okay, obviously you can figure out I like this movie a lot. I'm trying to think of what's actually not good about this movie, and the only thing I can really think of is maybe during the scenes where they're playing and having fun, they go on a bit too long and it becomes a bit unfocused, but I don't know. It's still supposed to be a family film that entertains the kids too, and kids just really want to stay in these entertaining worlds, and in my opinion, it lets them stay there for as long as they would probably want to stay there until it goes on to the next cool thing. Or balances it out with some really touching moments. Remember the Feed the Birds? Isn't that unbelievable? Something so simple as giving money to an old woman to feed birds, and by God, that song!
All around the cathedral, the saints and apostles look down as she sells her wares. Although you can't see it, you know they are smiling each time someone shows that he cares.
I heard this was Walt Disney's favorite song, and you can see why. It's something so simple but so powerful at the same time. The way it seems to blend in from one scene to another, going from happy and dancing into something a little bit more heavy and serious, into happy and dancing again, into animation, into live action. It's just a perfect blend. The song sequence Step in Time near the end, I just never want to stop. And it just keeps going and going and going like a party you never want to end. And when it does, it just ends on a perfect note where you just have to catch your breath. It allows you to calm down from this high that you've been going on for the past like 10 or 15 minutes. But then again, what makes it so good, I mean so friggin' good, is this ending scene when Mr. Banks is walking to his job knowing he's about to lose it. There's no song here, there's no dialogue, it's just him walking down these empty, dark roads. And it takes the time to really let this moment sink in, and it's not only one of my favorite moments in the movie, it's one of my favorite moments in film altogether. Listen to that music, look at these shots, you can just feel the atmosphere coming through on the screen. This is a man who's tied everything to his job, and now he's about to lose it, which equals to him about to lose everything. And then it comes to this really great moment where he goes to the stairs where the woman feeding the birds was, and she's not there. I could be reading too much into it, but I always sort of took it that she may have died. Listen to that choir, is that like the choir you'd hear in a church? But being a Disney film, they can't clearly say that, and I don't know, maybe it wasn't the intention, but that's what I get out of it, because you never see her again. Almost like it's signifying do those good moments when you can, because there may not be another time. It's just such a perfect moment. But of course the ending equals out to a happy one, and it's just the perfect one that you need. I won't ruin it to those who haven't seen it, but even if you know what's gonna happen, it's such a happy, positive delivery, and it's just such a good feeling when you watch it, and such a bittersweet exit for Mary Poppins as well, and just, it brings me back to being a little kid again every single time I see it. But as an adult, I can appreciate so much about it too, not just from a technical level or a special effects level, but from a writing level, from a musical level, from a character level. It's just so strong. This is one of those kids movies that just every family has, and for good reason. It deserves to be in every family. It deserves to be on every shelf. It's just a wonderful flick. It's written wonderfully, it's acted wonderfully, it looks wonderful, it sounds wonderful, it's just wonderful. The Jungle Book was the last animated film that was made while Disney was alive, which is interesting because the two films that would follow would steal such an unbelievable amount of animation from it. And as Disney films go, this is another one that I probably just place in the okay category. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the more sketchy style of Disney animation, at least not around this time period. They always sort of look like pencil sketches that were painted over and never quite looked finished to me. If you're a fan of it, great, it just doesn't do much for me. But teach their own. So, how's the story? Well, based on Rudyard Kipling's book, though very loosely, it follows the story of a little boy, or man cub as the animals call him, named Mowgli. He's raised by a pack of wolves, but suddenly his life is in danger when the evil tiger Shere Khan is coming to town. Shere Khan hates man, and the wolves know he'll end up ripping him to shreds if he ever finds him. So a panther named Bagheera takes Mowgli to the man village. The only problem is, Mowgli doesn't want to go. He wants to stay in the jungle and tries every chance he can to get away. While on the way, he comes across a friendly bear named Baloo, a marching elephant army, a crazy ape named King Louie, and a hypnotizing snake named Kaa. Well, let's talk about the good stuff. The best thing in this movie is Shere Khan. He's just a great villain. He actually reminds me a lot of Maleficent. There's not really much motivation to him, but just the style and class he has is so friggin' awesome. He's so confident in what a badass he is that it really does actually come off pretty intimidating. He just has nothing to fear. The snake Kaa, though not a main villain, is also pretty cool. Some of the best parts of the movie are just all the jokes they can make with how long he is. Don't take that the wrong way. Aside from that, the boy is okay, the other characters are okay, the songs are, you guessed it, okay. Actually, I take it back. The very last song the girl sings while getting the water actually I think is a very nice tune. I'd almost like to hear a different updated version of it because it actually has a very soothing melody. But aside from that, nothing really stands out too much for me about this Jungle Book, which is a shame because the original book is not only much darker, but it's much more interesting. The way the animal world views the human world is actually sort of a fascinating commentary. The characters are more developed too, and it follows Mowgli through sort of a coming-of-age story, which is really a shame because I think Disney could do the story great. Chuck Jones did a version that was much closer to the book in a half hour. I found that infinitely more fascinating than this film. But As is, there's nothing really bad about The Jungle Book, except, like I said, not following the book that closely. But as its own separate thing, it works out fine. It's a very basic kids film, what you see is what you get. It kept me entertained as a little kid, and I'm sure it'll keep your kids entertained as well. A few creative scenes and one or two characters definitely make it worth a watch.